Hi there and welcome to this quick session on Part J4, Building Fabric. Now, for this session, we're going to use that model, the model that we created, or should I say, we used within the Geometry Commercial course. So you, of course, can use your own model. No issue there at all. So let's go ahead and use this model here. Just because we have some definition in it already. Now, when it comes to Part J4 Building Fabric, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about this workflow available here for NCC 2022. And when you left click that, you're provided with a set of options. These options are defined as objectives on better building. And these all relate to the National Construction Code. So let's go ahead and have a look at that quickly first. And here we are within the NCC, Part J4 Building Fabric. Now, what we've done on Better Buildings is effectively make the following parts available in our workflow. So J4, D3, J4, D4, J4, D5, and J4, D6, and finally J4, D7. These requirements in reality are all pretty simple, where a performance requirement is set in the deemed to satisfy provision relative to roof and ceiling and roof lights and wall and glazing and floors, and you just simply need to meet those requirements, so meet those elemental provisions. They are relative to climate zones, of course, and effectively what we're doing is we're looking up these requirements for you on your behalf in order for you to effectively not need to go and do this. You're more than welcome to go ahead and cross-check, but once you've done that, once you're comfortable, you won't ever need to be really looking at these again. So let's go ahead and see how these relate to the workflow itself. Before we use the workflow, we'll just familiarize ourselves with the inputs that we have here on in the model itself. So we've distributed some brick veneer walls. We've distributed a rain screen system, and I'm just going to double check that in a second. For the roofs, where we've got a default 3.2. I'm just going to bring that down to 3. Use the arrows on the keyboard, only to service showing that we haven't met the performance requirements of the code. And we hit save. And what I'm going to do actually here, I'm just going to add a custom title just so it's clear where we're looking at. So we're just going to call this I guess general roof, and let's say let's leave it there. We only need a custom title to reference so you can see how you can use this feature. I'll hit update, hit save, move on. The floors, let's go ahead and call these slab on ground. So let's say slab on ground, and hit update again. And we're going to say they're all in contact with ground, and should you want to change these values, you're more than welcome to change those, particularly in reference to specification 39 for the subfloor calculator. You may want to go ahead and use this by determining the perimeter and the slab area and the wall thickness to determine the actual total R value, and then that value there would displace this total R value here. So I'm just going to leave it there for the time being. Actually, what I'll do, I'm going to bring it back down again so we can kind of see a failing element within the design. And for the windows, we have, let's put a really standard systems in here. Let's call a standard system 2.8, and that's for our curtain wall. We're going to do the same. We're going to do 2.7, let's say, for our, no, actually the window wall would be worse typically. Let's say 3.1, just for argument's sake there. We'll have the same solar heat gain coefficient, and then the punch window, let's make those ones a wee bit better there a system U value of 2.3. Of course, if you're over in New Zealand, you're going to be seeing our values here. Hit save, and let's go ahead and start running a simulation. So I just wanted to double check one thing there. Yeah, I think I'm correct. So just before we do that, the rain screen doesn't seem to be distributed. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to go ahead and bring that tag into play there. And we're just going to bring it into play right here. Actually, should we bring it into play here? Yeah, we'll bring it to play. Okay, that's now been brought into play. We've lost a bit of definition on these windows here. So I'm just going to have to double down on those and bring the tag in for those again. And that is true for both the shading, and we'll call those, let's call these the punch window there, just to make sure we have those in play. So we've actually 3 tags being built up there to represent that full height of the aspect. Okay, so we've got a lot of information in here. The next thing we need to do is just really jump into the workflow itself. What does this describe? Well, this describes straight up dim satisfied provisions. If you want to go ahead and do a limited, undertake a limited assessment, you can. In this scenario, let's go ahead and just do the lot. Okay, so we're doing the J4D3 all the way to J4D7. J4D3 is kind of a very descriptive dim satisfied provision, and it might be worth questioning exactly what that represents. So let me jump over to the dim satisfy just so we can be clear on what that element is, because the other elements are all quantitative. This is very much qualitative. Okay, and here we are back again, and we're under J4D3, and what we can see is that we've got kind of qualitative statements in items 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, with 5 giving you a little bit more information about methodology. But effectively this isn't saying, hey, you must meet these requirements, just saying, look, these are the things that you must have considered to meet part J4D3, and if that is true, then you can go ahead and keep it in scope when it comes to your workflow. So that's really the basics of the elements that will go in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a review, and we're going to check these against the climate zone, and within this project it happens to be a 9B building, so school building in climate zone 2. So that's Brisbane there. So that's what we're going to be matching to. So effectively almost like a lookup function if you are an Excel person. Now, that is the main, I guess, piece of work here. There is another element to this form. Now, this element here is around simulating shading multipliers. Now, this needs to be understood exactly what it represents. So let's go ahead and have a look at the National Construction Code one more time to see what would happen if you did not toggle that switch. Within specification 37, calculation of U value and solar admittance, we are provided with a methodology for solar admittance and U values on a method 1 and method 2 basis. As we get to the end of this section, we can see that we have something called shading coefficients. Now, these are determined as per PG&H, which is a very well-known figure in the National Construction Code. And effectively, PG&H provides you with a value for the north, east and western aspects. Subject to your PG&H values, you then select one of these values here, and these are shading coefficients or shading multipliers. So table S37CA is for north, east and western components, and table S37C7B is for those southern components. Now, what are the, I guess, issues, if you like, with these values are that they are deemed to represent the entirety of the Australian continent. That, of course, is not true. They cannot represent the entirety based on PG and H because of longitude and latitude. So these are kind of rough numbers that you could accept, but these are the deemed to satisfy numbers. They are wrong, but they are deemed to satisfy this part of the code. Now, if we go back to the platform, we can then understand that we are defaulting to those deemed to satisfy values if we do not use this toggle here. But the question is, what happens if we do use this toggle? Well, the answer is in this little caption here. When active, compares each window as completely unshaded to windows affected by shading, building self-shading, and surrounding structures. Each window is assigned a unique shading coefficient, replacing the coefficients provided in those tables that I just showed you. What it effectively means is that you get more bang for your buck when it comes to running simulations. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that like this, and we're going to be doing another video on shading anyway. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear what happens then, and to be even more clearer, you move from a deemed to satisfy provision to a performance solution for J4D6 if you do toggle that. So please be aware that even though you're adding accuracy to the process, you are not using those lookup values, and therefore you are no longer in deemed to satisfy land. You're over in a performance solution, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I commonly suggest people go down that route because it makes far more sense to get more value out of your shading when it's applied, rather than look up generic values that are very unlikely to represent your design. That being said, let's go ahead and click create, and what we're going to do is, in this case, we're going to save our results. So we could run them without saving them, and that would allow us to run it directly in the browser. I'm going to go ahead and save these results just because I want to show that credit usage coming into play, and this costs about 1 credit or something. You'll get an estimate of the number of credits here that is consumed, but what it means is that the results are effectively saved so you can come back and grab them later on. So let's wait for that to pop up there and get the estimate of the number of credits involved in this, but we're going to be running this assessment for the entirety of the design, and there you go, 2 credits, and there's more information on credits. Please use our documentation to find out more. So I'm going to begin the study here, and I'm just going to call this example DTS assessment, and hit begin. And that's going to now take as long as it takes to run the simulation. I'm running this outside of typical work hours, so it's likely to batch process nice and quickly. But effectively, this is going into a batch processing here. We can see that rotating icon here. You can go ahead and left click that, and you can see that it's actually being activated as we speak. And if we want to open this in a new window, we sure can. Let's go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do now, we're just going to wait for that simulation to complete. Okay, now that's taken a few minutes to complete, as you would expect. And what we can see over here on the right is a summation of the results. Okay, and we'll jump into the details in a second, but let's just understand really what's being stated here. So over here on the left hand side, we can see the representation of the proposed design. On the right here, we can see a slider, and if the slider is this pink color, that's bad. If it's green, it's good. It means you've met those requirements. So in summation, that the roof R value here has not quite met the requirements. It's 3 below 3.7, so that's fine, is what it is. The roof solar absorbance is bang on. It's exactly 0.45, so that meets the requirements. J4, D6, walls and glazing. Method 1, we get a cross. Method 2, we get a tick. So what does that mean? It means that, well, in method 1, the east failed. In method 2, everything went well. Wall glazing U value, fine. Wall R value, fine. AC value, fine. So no problems there. And the roof R value, yeah, it was a requirement of 2, 1, we've clearly failed. So let's go and view the details. And what do we see? Well, first of all, let's understand exactly what we're looking at here. We can see a summary, and then we can see the elemental provisions underneath. The summary effectively repeats all of these and puts it into a report for you. Okay, so this then can be used either directly by exporting it and using themes to add on your own branding, or you could go ahead and kind of copy and paste these out for your own needs if you want to go ahead and go through a manual approach or use your own internal formatting. But what we can see is really a breakdown of everything from inputs, so the relative wall areas and the percentage of window to wall ratio, the levels including the areas and what's in the walls and the glazing, and the number of zones, each zone with its area, its volume, the walls. So we've got some walls are just the concept design, Some walls are the wall system 1, the brick veneer. So we can quickly see that there's something going on here, that these walls haven't been correctly specified. So that's really important to note, because obviously everything is incorrect until we fully agree on these inputs. We can see wall system 1 and wall system 2, which I added on there. We can see the roofs. Everything is a 9B in terms of the roofs. But interestingly, well, from this example perspective, we've got a couple of offices there that are class 5. So that's been picked up there nicely. And then everything else there are the 9B. And we've also got some external floors as well. So those external floors would be floors popping out above the ground level, and we'll go ahead and explain what that is in a second. And then you've got each and every window with its U value, solar heat gain coefficient, the multiplier as per the deemed satisfied provisions, and the area. So that's all kind of calculated for you. And you can see there it goes on. It provides lots of detail, all related to each deemed to satisfy provision. Jumping into these elementally, as described, this is just the qualitative requirements. You're saying that you've met these if you've included them in your scope. J4, D4, very much just the roof and ceiling construction, whether you've met it or have not met it. And we can see we haven't met it as per the 3, which is that 3 there, and the 3.7, which is that 3.7 there. So we haven't met those requirements as already described in the summary. The east is the failed one there, and this provides you with just a bit more detail and as to how far you need to push it. And it's only failed on the solar admittance there. So a relatively easy one to resolve. Then you've got the method 2. As stated, method 2, we don't have any issues with method 2. It's passed. And we can see a repetition of the 1.07, the 2.02, and the 158.34, which is the, I guess, the stated value, and that's the percentage improvement upon it. For the floors, we have the stated requirement and the actual value there. Of course, none of this actually makes much sense until we've fully accepted the inputs. And this is, once you go to geometry summary, this is probably the first step that you would be taking on each and every project, making sure that you're happy with the summation of information here before you accept any results. And this really provides you with an opportunity to quality check your model in terms of what it represents. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got this kind of very small area, and it might be hard to find that one, very small area where that's overlapped. So it looks like there's a geometric issue there, and it's generated. It's not going to make a difference to the results, but through some overlap, we've got a very small slither of floor above the ground level that is popping out, and then it's deemed to be exposed to the outside. So probably a model issue. We could go ahead and find that. Let's see if we can find it. I don't think we will be able to find it because it's such a small area. But if you imagine that there's a floor popping out somewhere, it's a very, very small area. I think it's probably going to be too much to ask to try and find that. But there is going to be some floor area popping out. And just by way of introducing this section here, this section allows you to go through your wall, floor, ceiling, roof, window and opaque doors to go ahead and understand what the inputs are, which you'll obviously want to agree on, which are those inputs that are effectively summarized back here. And just while I've got the thermal envelope there, I'll talk to it. The green is the space within the envelope, so this is the conditioned space within the building itself. Roofs are the roofs. We have roof finishes, and then we have the insulation line as well. In this case, we have a flat roof at the top there, and here we have we've got a pop-top roof here, so the insulation will be at the ceiling. Okay, so it's going to be at the ceiling there. It's not going to be at the roof. It's going to be at the ceiling because it's a cold roof system. Okay, so there you go. That's a summary from in a typical scenario. What you would be doing here is you'd be saying, okay, these concepts here, this is a bit abstract. I don't know where these are. So it would be a point of going into the model and resolving the detailing in the model, effectively making sure that all aspects would include wall system 1 brick veneer and wall system 2 rain screen. The internals, they're fine, they can be kept as they are. So you would want to know exactly where they are. There's a good amount of them, so that would be the quest that you would go on at this point. In order to resolve all of this, and then all you do is you go ahead and rerun the simulation, and once you're in happy space, then you can go ahead and download your report. So you could pick a theme, you could include project information. What I'll make a point on here is that this is really valuable from a certifier's perspective. It provides much more clarity. We encourage as many people to use these input fields to supplement your report. You should probably effectively create these in another document and copy and paste them in each and every job. And this is particularly true if you have toggled that switch for the shading coefficients, because effectively you're doing a performance solution at that point. So you're going to need to provide additional information. But there you go, that's an introduction to Part J4 building fabric. Best of luck with it, and once you've completed your course, don't forget to answer all those questions, and you can print out that certificate of completion if you get 80% right, and potentially share that in social media or use it in your reports to show your level of competency. That's it. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.